You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Well, good morning. Well, good morning. Well, good morning. Morning. To another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. Hey, this is Robert Phoenix. What's happening? What is going on out there, in there, around there? We are here broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas, where Fredericksburg's birthday is coming up on May 15th. How about that? The day of the event. Well, May 15th is when we have the new moon in Taurus conjuncting Uranus in Taurus. Hello. It's going to be an interesting day. And we're talking a week from today. So why don't you put that there on your calendar and have a little look at it and check it out there. There's a lot happening. First of all, there is still major activity going on the Big Island in Hawaii. But there's some other pieces that are starting to pop up in that ring of fire. Notice some heavy seismic and geothermal activity also taking place in New Zealand. And there was an earthquake in New Orleans. That is not a good sign. I just got to tell you, I'm not here to be a prophet of doom and gloom, but that is the New Madrid Fault, and it is connected to, of course, the Mississippi River. And I'm sure some of you have seen the maps of the new America after the Great Deluge, where the Mississippi River splits open like a watermelon and basically divides the country. You know, that would be kind of an interesting sort of geophysical correlation to where the country is right now, which is clearly divided. So all of our friends on the Big Island, we're wishing you everything. We're wishing you everything in that situation. We hope that you escape without damage, and if the damage is there, that it's limited, and that even your health is in good shape because of the noxious gases that are coming up from the lava spew. We're into that whole kind of, the methane, the methane release from the oceans, and what else? The permafrost. That's a whole other topic, which we're not ready to get into today. But we probably should, just so that we can have an advanced discussion about what's happening geothermally. Okay, well, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of cap off what we were talking about yesterday and move into some new territory. And what better place to start as a segue than what's going on with Eric Schneiderman? And is that something that Lionel will do? Lionel would do something like that.
Eric Schneiderman. Now you see, there's a guy who happens to be a very important lawyer in New York City. And do you know what happened to him? I'll tell you what happened to him. He got busted. That's right. He got busted. For what? For having improper relationships with women. I'm sorry. Sometimes shit happens.
Let's get into Eric Schneiderman. We're going to segue, do a crossfade into Nexium. And then we're going to try to wrap it up and bring it back to what we were talking about yesterday, which was the relationships between men and women and the social ramifications of the cult of beauty. Can we do it? Can we get it all in? While also taking a bit of a sweat at Mueller and what's going on there? Let's do it. All right, it's at the top of the news, so we're going to start off with Eric Schneiderman. I'm going to read you some copy from Politico magazine. And this is a very interesting story. This came out on the 3rd of February, 2017. This is the man who was tasked with taking down one Donald John Trump. Looking at one of the headlines from the New York Observer, and it has Schneiderman photoshopped into a picture of Alex from Clockwork Orange. It's the Clockwork Orange symbol. And he's looking like he is the head droog who's going to essentially emasculate Trump. Let's read this. I like you. You and me, we're going to be best friends. It is early January, and Eric Schneiderman is sitting in his 25th floor, office above Lower Manhattan, doing his best Donald Trump impression, puckering his lips into a duck face, scrunching up his nose and lowering his voice into something that resembles the president's outer burrow growl. Schneiderman is recalling his meeting with Trump in 2010. Back then, Schneiderman was running for Attorney General of New York, and Trump was still in his pre-birther reality TV host phase. Trump had donated money to one of Schneiderman's opponents in the Democratic primary. Schneiderman managed to pull off a come-from-behind victory, and after the race, he went to Trump Tower to ask for a donation for the general election. Trump coughed up $12,500 to the Democrat, and Schneiderman went on to beat his Republican opponent and win. But Trump and Schneiderman did not become best friends. That meeting was the beginning of a long and increasingly bitter saga between the two. Schneiderman took up the state's existing case against Trump University. New York wanted the school to drop the university from its name since it was not chartered as an institution of higher learning and lacked a license to offer instruction. As he pursued it over the next 5 years, he became the target of a relentless series of personal attacks from the Trump camp. Trump filed an ethics complaint alleging that Schneiderman offered to drop the suit in exchange for donations. He went on television to denounce Schneiderman as a hack and a lightweight and said he was wasting millions of taxpayers' dollars when he should have been going after Wall Street. Never mind that Schneiderman had already been declared the man the banks fear most by the liberal magazine The American Prospect. The whole scorched earth strategy towards those who would challenge him we got a preview of, says Schneiderman. Schneiderman is a slender, slightly built former corporate lawyer, the only son of a New York philanthropist whose last names adorn several city cultural institutions. One never senses from him the kind of comfort and ease that people from his position tend to radiate, but rather a twitchy impatience, as if the vein on his forehead is going to pop, while he busts some of the high-priced glassware in the political china shop. In the 6 years after he won that race, Schneiderman has emerged as perhaps the lefty media's favorite lawyer, tangling with mortgage bankers, ExxonMobil, and national retailers like Abercrombie & Fitch, J. Crew, and The Gap. And on November 9, he was handed what might become his largest target when Donald Trump, his longtime nemesis, was elected president. The Trump University suit eventually was settled for $25 million days after the election, despite the then president-elect's repeated pledges never to settle. Schneiderman could have left it at that, but Schneiderman has let it be known that Trump is still in his crosshairs. In the days since November 9, that's 11-9 for you at home, Schneiderman fired off a letter warning Trump not to drop the White House support of Obama's Clean Power Plan, introduced a bill in the state legislature to give New Yorkers cost-free contraception if the ACA is dismantled, threatened to sue after Trump froze EPA funding of clean air and water programs, and joined a lawsuit that argues that Trump's executive order on immigration is not just unconstitutional and un-American, but it brings profound harm to the residents of New York State. He has a record of not only going after Trump, but going after people now in Trump world. He's on the opposite side of the Clean Power Plan fight from Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, since named head of the EPA, and who Schneiderman labeled a dangerous and unqualified choice. He's gone after Rex Tillerson, who, as the CEO of ExxonMobil, defended his company from a Schneiderman investigation. Since the election, he's begun investigating a reverse mortgage business once led by Steve Mnuchin, the nominee to be the next Treasury Secretary. Schneiderman doesn't think that the fact he has already appeared in court against Trump necessarily prepares him for what is about to come. But he has little doubt that something will come. Congress remains in Republican hands, and for the foreseeable future, looks unwilling to provide much in the way of check or balance on the presidency. Governors and mayors can scream and protest, but beyond setting an example for other policymakers, the effect of their actions will be limited to their constituents. Schneiderman, though, effectively leads a law firm of more than 650 lawyers, one with a 2-decade tradition of taking its fights national. Now he faces an administration in Washington that is not just pro-fraud, as former Maine Attorney General James Tierney put it, but one helmed by someone very used to using the courts to get his way. He's not playing hide the ball, Schneiderman said when asked about what he learned about the new president from his earlier tangle with him. He's not that different off stage from how he is on stage. This is him. He's a complicated guy in some respects, but he's used to making his own rules, and he plays a very aggressive game. When he wants to get something done, he will use every tool at his disposal. If Governor Elliot Spitzer became known as the Sheriff of Wall Street, and Governor Andrew Cuomo vowed to clean up Albany and become the Sheriff of State Street, Schneiderman could very much become the next Sheriff of Pennsylvania Avenue. Schneiderman had seen dirty pool in his years as the state's chief law enforcement officer, but his fight with the Trump organization was, he says, on the outer edge of normal. 2 years into Schneiderman's investigation of Trump University, Schneiderman filed a lawsuit against the company with charges of fraud. Trump himself retaliated by filing a complaint against the AG with the New York State Board of Ethics. He alleged that Schneiderman and his aides several times approached Trump, his daughter Ivanka, and son-in-law Jared Kushner for contribution for the aid of their influence and celebrity status to secure other favors and preferential treatment in furtherance of Mr. Schneiderman's political aspirations. Schneiderman also promised several times to make sure that the messy investigation into Trump University went away, according to the complaint. In an interview, Schneiderman says that nothing of the sort happened, and in fact, that after assuming office, he was expressly outlawed from soliciting Trump, since the developer was involved in all sorts of litigation with the state. Trump's complaint was dismissed, but it was just one piece of a larger counteroffensive. We got a preview of what everyone else got a few years later, Schneiderman said. Some of the assault came via Twitter. Lightweight MIS Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is trying to extort me with a civil lawsuit, Trump tweeted in August of 2013. When Schneiderman toured Syracuse University that month with President Barack Obama to promote low-interest college loans, Trump went on Good Morning America and the Today Show to accuse Obama of paying Schneiderman off to take the suit. That fall, a new website appeared, 98percentapproval.com, that said on its homepage that it was created to bring to the public's attention the gross incompetence of New York State Attorney General Eric T. Schneiderman. The domain was registered by Trump's attorneys. Perhaps most remarkably, in February 2014, Schneiderman was the target of a lengthy, ferocious cover story in the New York Observer, the newspaper owned by Trump, son-in-law Jared Kushner, published in the midst of the dispute. The headline read, "The Power and Politics of A.G. Schneiderman," Will righteous Eric bag big prey, or will reckless Eric come undone? And it portrayed the Attorney General as the Malcolm McDowell character from A Clockwork Orange, an unredeemed sadist and too much eye makeup. The eye makeup was a specific dig at his appearance. The Attorney General takes glaucoma medication that makes his lashes appear thicker and darker than normal. So I'm just laying the background here of Eric Schneiderman's longtime beef and feud with Donald Trump. So it goes back to when Trump was a reality TV shows. And here's what I think. I think that Eric Schneiderman did what most attorney generals wind up, not most, but some who are very ambitious. What they do is that they will essentially take money from people like Donald Trump and then cross over and go after them. One of the examples that I think I could probably use is Bobby Kennedy. When Bobby Kennedy was the Attorney General of the United States, and Bobby and John took a lot of campaign money from some very shady people, including the Jewish/Italian mafia, because they're linked. Because his father was dealing with Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, Sam Giancana, and he was getting that money because he knew those people. And what happened was that they made him promise that Bobby and John would not go after Israel and would stay away from the mob. And if you go back and you look at the activity that took place during the early 60s up through the mid-60s and even to some point in the early 70s when they were dealing with the John Gottis of the world, there was a really strong emphasis on breaking the mafia, the Italian mafia. And Bobby Kennedy turned on the people that essentially gave him and his brother money and a lot more to get elected. Well, Schneiderman did the same thing with Trump. Now, with Schneiderman's case, I'm assuming that he saw Trump as a whale, and a whale that was probably vulnerable in some way, shape, or form. And political careers are built on taking down whales. That's what happens. So Eric Schneiderman could put Trump's trophy on his wall. Say, look what I did. I took down the Donald. And that would lead to any number of different, political and or economic perks for Schneiderman. Higher office, able to charge more money for fees, whatever it is, that's a major trophy on the wall if he could take down Trump. And so he's been actively working on taking down Trump. Well, let's fast forward now. This is the latest, and some of you are all over it, but New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman announced his resignation on Monday night, just hours after 4 women accused him of physically abusing them. So here's his letter. It's been my great honor and privilege to serve as Attorney General for the people of the state of New York in the last several hours. Serious allegations, which I strongly contest, have been made against me. Well, these allegations are unrelated to my professional conduct or the operations of my office. They will effectively prevent me from leading the office's work at this critical time. I therefore resign my office effective at the close of business on May 8, 2018. So here it goes. In a report from the New Yorker's Jane Meyer and Ronan Farrow, the 4 women, 3 women of whom had romantic relationships with Schneiderman, and a 4th who rebuffed his advances, accused him of choking and slapping them and engaging in other controlling, demeaning, and threatening behavior. 2 of the women, Michelle Manning-Barish and Tanya Selvaratnam, went on the record. They alleged that he repeatedly hit them often after drinking frequently in bed and never with their consent. Because hitting somebody with their consent, that's okay. Mind if I hit you? Mind if I rough you up a bit? Oh, no, baby. Go ahead. Whatever makes you feel good. I'm here for you. Selvaratnam, Manning, Barish, and Selvaratnam characterized the abuse he inflicted on them as assault. They did not report their allegations to the police at the time, but both say they eventually sought medical attention, and having been slapped hard across the ear and face and also choked, Selvaratnam says that Schneiderman warned her he could have her followed and her phones tapped, and both say that he threatened to kill them if they broke up with him. These are not allegations from way back in the day, like many that have finally come to light due to the recent reckoning over sexual harassment. Manning Barish dated the Attorney General from the summer of 2013 until the end of 2015. Selvaratnam was with him from the summer of 2016 to the fall of 2017. During that time, Schneiderman was positioning himself as a champion of the hashtag #MeToo movement. We're going to get into another one of those soon. He filed a civil rights suit against Harvey Weinstein and his company to secure greater compensation for the victims of the mogul's unwelcome attentions and alleged crimes. Schneiderman, a Democrat, was first elected Attorney General in 2010 and was planning to seek a third term. He is divorced and has a 24-year-old daughter. Before stating in his resignation announcement that he continues to strongly contest the allegations, Schneiderman denied the women's claims to the New Yorker, suggesting they might be part of consensual role-playing. Okay, that's what I was inferring. In the privacy of intimate relationships, I've engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross. So role-playing is probably code for S&M. That, they sat around reading 50 Shades of Grey and reenacting some of the scenes. Schneiderman's ex-wife, Jennifer Cunningham, was one of the few people who came to his defense. Cunningham currently serves as one of Schneider's political consultants, and in the New Yorker piece, Selvaratnam claims she conferred with her on a cover story after the AG cut his face during a night of heavy drinking on the eve of Trump's inauguration. Oh, man. Could you imagine that? I wonder if he was getting smashed with Hillary. Man, that's taking some stuff personally, isn't it? He was having a Captain Willard moment. You know, Willard is the character that Martin Sheen plays at the beginning of Apocalypse Now, where he goes nuts in that hotel room in Saigon, and they're playing This Is the End by the Doors, and he's wasted, and he's doing some kind of weird karate in his underwear, and he smashes the mirror, which, by the way, Sheen was completely wasted for during that scene. So Schneiderman was probably doing that. He's probably recreating the end. This is the end. Oh, it's like, fuck! Trump got elected! I can't believe it! I can't believe it! Sir, would you love a nut like another scotch and soda? No! Just give me the bottle! I wish... That's the stuff I wish we had cameras for. It doesn't matter what side, left or right. We don't get that stuff. Wouldn't it be great to have the outtakes of Hillary backstage on the night of the election? Oh, my God. Somebody's got that stuff, by the way. You know they do. Here we go. Cunningham currently serves as one of Schneiderman's political consultants. I'm just going to read this over again. And in the New Yorker piece, Selvaratnam claims she conferred with her on a cover story after the AG cut his face during a night of heavy drinking on the eve of Trump's inauguration. I've known AG Schneiderman for nearly 35 years as husband, father, and friend, said Jennifer Cunningham. These allegations are completely inconsistent with a man I know who has always been someone of the highest character. Eric Schneiderman, New York's Attorney General, resigns. This is a tweet. The New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, he wasn't ready to comment on the allegations. Mayor de Blasio says he does not think it's appropriate to comment on the bombshell Eric Schneiderman story. You think? But other prominent New York lawmakers were quick to call for his resignation, including Governor Andrew Cuomo, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and the state Republican Party. We're going to get to Kirsten Gillibrand in a moment. I do not believe it is possible for Eric Schneiderman to continue to serve as Attorney General. And for the good of the office, he should resign, Cuomo said. This is what Gillibrand says. Based on this extensive and serious reporting, I do not believe Eric Schneiderman should continue to serve as Attorney General. There should be a full and immediate investigation into these credible allegations. Let's see what we have here. The New York Police Department issued a statement Monday night saying it has no complaints on file against Schneiderman, but if any are received, the department will investigate them thoroughly. Okay, let me just stop here for a minute. Nobody went to the police. None of these women went to the police. None of them filed complaints during the time that Schneiderman supposedly beat them up in a non-consensual moment. And I'm not sticking up for Eric Schneiderman. I think he's probably a weaselly little political prick that's probably getting some comeuppance, which is what is happening now in the time of reckoning. So, to be fair, though, they did not go to the police after it happened. Now, again, this didn't happen in 2002. It did happen, in the last 3 years with these two women. And then there are two others unnamed who are joining in on the piling on. So Schneiderman is essentially following the same fate as Matt Lauer, as Charlie Rose, as people like Marshall Falk and Eric Davis from the NFL Network. None of this is going through some kind of legal procedure. Cosby did. So you see that woman that was the final accuser looked just like an aging middle linebacker. Holy smokes, that woman looks so much like a man. Anyway, I'm not a fan of being tried in the court of public opinion. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a good look. Now, not only is it not a good look, but it is really counter to the, unfortunately, bankrupt legal system that we have in this country. And so now, instead of actually having real trials, real lawyers, real evidence, what we have are these fleeting moments of either resignation or 1 or 2 day, not even mock trials, announcements of verdicts by the lawyers of people like, or from the lawyers of people like Nicholas Cruz or any of the other so-called living shooters. I guess Tsarnaev had the longest trial. But even that was just a complete dog and pony show. And the guy who was on trial didn't even look like Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. And I don't want to get into that too much. But I want to stay with this theme that nobody is getting their days in court at a high level. We're being tried and convicted in the court of public opinion. And I don't have any love for this man. But the legal process is theoretically supposed to play out. Theoretically. Instead, he's just going to step down because probably there's something in his background that he's going to be a little sketchy about, doesn't want to have come out into the open, so he's just going to cut his losses and move on, which should be the lesser of two evils for him at this point. But the Republicans they're just doing war dances now around this guy because he was clearly a nemesis of Trump and the Republican Party. And he was involved in an orchestrated and strategic takedown of Trump. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was probably in the chain of command and communication circle for storming Michael Cohen's office and snatching Cohen's records. Because he is the Attorney General of New York, and that is a legal precedent that was being set by the FBI during that raid. So I would assume that Schneiderman was probably in on the call and gave his papal blessing to go ahead and do it. Get the evidence first, and then we'll deal with the ramifications and the legalities afterwards. I'm assuming this, okay, because he's the Attorney General of the state. That was a major operation. So he's out on his butt now, and the Republicans are dancing in the aisles because, of course, we're living in a time of heightened Schadenfreude, which when one party gets to experience the joy at another party's suffering.
Ha, look at you. Look what happened to you. Ha, ha, ha. We got you. We got you.
Oh. And then they come around and go, oh, look what happened to you. Oh, we got you now. Oh. Look at how immoral you are. Look at how hypocritical you are. It's so fucking juvenile. It's just really juvenile. And it's like everybody's 15 years old. It's like, see. Do what I say, not as I do. It's entertaining, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's an entertainment value around this. But if this is what justice looks like in the United States of America circa 2018, we're in trouble. Because there is no justice. There's only the lightning flash judgment in the court of public opinion. That's all there is. It may be perhaps in Eric Schneiderman's case, there might be a lot of sordid details that might start pouring through. So maybe Eric Schneiderman's probably a little better off. A little better off. I think by the time they'd get to full latex bodysuits and German Shepherds, before they get there, it'd probably be better to just step out. So let's talk about the woman that I was talking about a little bit earlier, Miss Gillibrand, who is on the front lines of Me Too. Front lines of Me Too. Well, let's follow up on another story. And this one is just published March 29th. And this is nothing really new, but I just wanted to link up a couple of the pieces here. And this has to do with Nexium. Nexium. Isn't that weird? It's like NXVIM. They couldn't call it Nexium because Nexium is the purple pill that you're supposed to take for your heartburn, acid indigestion. So it's NXIVM. All right, let's get into this. This has to do with Nexium and the Clintons. This is from FulcrumNews.com. Smallville actress Allison Mack was arrested last week for involvement in the Nexium sex cult scandal in Albany. New York law enforcement official state Mack is considered to be a co-conspirator to Nexium cult leader Keith Raniere. According to recently released court documents, Keith Vanguard Raniere and Allison Mack have been indicted on sex trafficking conspiracy to commit forced labor. Alleged victims in the documents are labeled Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2. which occurs when in cases involving minors. The indictments cite Title 18, United States Sex Trafficking Code, sex trafficking of children by force, fraud, or coercion. This means there was either sex trafficking of children or adults. Details are not yet clear. Sections listed 1591A12, 1591B1 point to sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, with the possibility of at least one of the victims had not attained the age of 14 years at the time of such offense. There are clear indications this investigation may involve child sex trafficking. Allison Mack is said to be negotiating a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Rainier. She's been granted a $5 million bail with house arrest. So where did she get $5 million? It's a lot of money. Yeah, she was an actress, but she stopped being an actress probably, about 4 or 5 years ago. She got into becoming a full-on new age S&M pimp. Let's see. On Monday, authorities finally closed in on Nexium co-founder Keith Rainier. Nexium initially claimed to be a self-help organization, but has been controversial for years with rumors of it being a cult. Rainier has been on the run since last year after several women involved in the group came forward with accusations of torture rituals, including branding, sex trafficking, and forced labor. Keith Rainier, high-level Nexium officials, President Nancy Saltzman, Seagram heiresses Claire and Sarah Bronfman are now under FBI investigation. As details emerge, it is blatant this group has been well connected with many high-power individuals, including Kristen Gillibrand and failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. So on the one hand, Kristen Gillibrand is going after Eric Schneiderman. And she was an extremely vocal proponent of Me Too. But over here, she's being connected to Nexium. And what they're doing. Let's read more. In 2007, the New York Post reported that top executives and associates of Nexium and their family members donated $29,000 to Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. Each of them maxed out their donation limit at $2,300. This was discovered following the arrest of Norman Shue, a wealthy businessman who was able to raise $1.5 million in campaign contributions to Clinton and other Democrats. Shue, that's spelled HSU, was charged with operating a $60 million Ponzi scheme and imprisoned. Many states also alleged Keith Rainier was running a Ponzi scheme called Consumer Byline Incorporated. However, he was able to get away with only a few fines. At the time, the Clinton campaign downplayed the contributions from Nexium, yet Hillary was not the only Clinton accepting funds from Nexium officials, even though they were purported to be running a cult. The defrauded devotees shattered families and drove at least one person to suicide. The suicide victim, Kristen Snyder, wrote in her journal prior to allegedly drowning herself, "I was brainwashed and my emotional center of the brain was killed/turned off." This was after a series of Snyder undergoing expensive, intensive studies in the organization. Her body was never found. Regardless, at least 3 Nexium officials, Nancy Saltzman and the Bronfman sisters, were allowed to become members of Bill Clinton's organization, the Clinton Global Initiative. Their membership is significant considering CGI membership is by invitation only, with a pledge of at least $15,000 per year. Democrat Senator Gillibrand has been ensnared in the scandal as well, considering her father, Doug Rutnick, was once a lobbyist for Nexium and Rainier. After the senator denied having prior knowledge to the activities, GOP candidate Shelley Farley states for Kristen Gillibrand, the self-proclaimed #MeToo senator, to claim ignorance about a notorious sex slave cult in her own backyard is simply hard to believe. So Kristen Gillibrand's dad was a lobbyist for Nexium and Rainier. DOS, the secret society, according to the FBI complaint, Rainier, also known as the Vanguard. Could you imagine sitting around their little get-togethers? What does the Vanguard have to say? I don't know. We haven't fully been debriefed by the Vanguard's position. Let's see if we can get the Vanguard on the hotline. The Vanguard. Rainier, also known as the Vanguard, founded an umbrella company called Executive Success Program, ESP. Ooh, that's cool. Under this umbrella company, he set up Nexium headquarters in Albany, New York. Today, the company operates all over the Americas. Not anymore. Including the United States, Central America, Mexico, and Canada. The organization attracts its victims by offering classes which promise personal and professional development. They are told in order to reach certain levels, they must keep paying, go to classes, and recruit others to join. Sounds like somebody was involved in Scientology here. In 2015, a secret society was formed within Nexium called the DOS. DOS is an organized criminal organization operating in the District of New York, other parts of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. According to the document, DOS engages in interstate and foreign commerce. DOS works in pyramid formation with different hierarchical levels of slaves who are headed by masters. Slaves are forced to constantly recruit slaves of their own grooming purposes. Rainier, of course, operates as the highest level of masters. According to the women coming forward, they stayed in the cult even though they were forced into sex, torture, and doing other favors for their masters due to brainwashing and blackmail. It has been estimated about at least 12,000 people have attended Nexium classes. Notable clients include Richard Branson, Antonio Novello, former Surgeon General, and Vincente Fox's daughter, Anna Fox. Hollywood actress Allison Mack also joined the group and escalated herself into top slave after recruiting other actors and actresses. The Dalai Lama even accepted the invitation to speak at the World Ethical Foundation's Consortium, an organization founded by the Rainier and Bronfman sisters. The Bronfman sisters, of course, we talked about this, appear to be the major financial backers of this criminal organization. They come from an immensely affluent family and are heiresses to the Bronfman billionaire fortune. After their father, Edgar, passed, Edgar Bronfman was also born into wealth. His father, Samuel, opened up Seagram Limited after leaving the Soviet Union. After taking over the company, Edgar later became president of the World Jewish Council, where he gathered ties to global leaders such as Mikhail Gorbachev, the Clintons, Obamas, and the Bush family. Because of this family history, the Bronfman sisters have far-reaching contacts throughout the world. So, we have the Clinton connection. Now the New York Daily News says the sex cult is not tied to Bill and Hillary Clinton. Oh, okay. Well, how is it not tied? Now, here's another false story ties sex cult to Clinton's. Hillary's $30,000 fans are her cult following. So if you go through, you're going to, so this is where we are now. Clearly there's a connection between the Clintons and Nexium. Nancy Saltzman, the Bronfman sisters were invited to be members of the Clinton Global Initiative, CGI, creating the fake world before your very eyes. How is that not ties? You know, but that's a tie. Now, were they sending 13-year-old girls over to Bill Clinton so he could do what he does and torture them? I don't know. I don't have any evidence of it. There are a lot of people who are like putting the links together inside their brain. But what we do know is that there were a number of political donations. There was a connection between Kirsten Gillibrand and her father being a lobbyist for Nexium. This Nexium was a pretty aggressive organization, and they knew exactly what to do, which was grease the palms of the politicians and have people like Kirsten Gillibrand's father go to bat for them in Washington. This is amazing stuff. Totally amazing stuff. So we have the Schneiderman piece that's breaking. We have some of the Nexium stuff that's still continuing to break. We don't know what Allison Mack is babbling on and on about, but I'm sure she's spilling the beans with everything. What they do with it, who knows? Maybe they'll just use it as another form of blackmail. Once they have enough information, they can muscle some of these people, and who knows what will happen. It would be very interesting. Like, I would love to see this Nexium stuff go to trial. Will it ever go to trial? What's the theme here? Nothing really ever goes to trial anymore. Could you imagine a long, drawn-out trial with Keith Raniere and Allison Mack and calling all these witnesses? Could you imagine? Like the dirt that would come out from something like that? Never happened. Never happened. Keith Raniere will probably plead guilty. We'll run him up there just like they did Nicholas Cruz. He'll be unshaven. And then we'll whisk him away. We'll never see him again. Who knows? Maybe they'll just recycle him. Throw him out to Borneo or someplace like that. Or maybe he'll actually spend the rest of his days in a Supermax. I don't know. But now, of course, the right is starting to dance. They're dancing with glee because they're having this schadenfreude moment. And many of them. Rosie O'Donnell. Comes out that Rosie O'Donnell is making campaign donations under different names. How about that? Of course, Twitter's all the twit about that. Ooh, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at her. What she's done. Bad girl, bad girl, bad girl. It's like the public has become mommy and daddy, and the left and the right are pointing fingers at each other. Look, mommy, look, daddy. Look what she did. Look, mommy, look, daddy, look what he did. We're just sitting here going, what the hell, Can we actually have somebody go to trial and see what happens? And there's more. There's a lot more. Mueller now looks like he's starting to take some flack. We had a judge push back on him with the Manafort case. You know what happens when things like that occur? People start to get a little bit of confidence, a little bit of gumption, a little bit of moxie, and they start pushing back, pushing back, pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. So we might be seeing kind of a turning point moment in this ongoing and endless investigation of President Donald J. Trump with Mueller and his team at your expense with all those pieces of funny money that they print out of thin air but are ultimately charged to you. That's happening as well. There's a lot going on out there. And then Trump is trying to push Gina Haspel as the new director of the CIA. Of course, her background as being the torture queen of Guantanamo has come up, and Trump is incredulous, saying, basically she was torturing terrorists. What's wrong with that? Well, torture is wrong in general. Sorry, it's wrong. In many cases, it's been proven that torture is not an effective tool in trying to extract information. And the premise itself is false, because Guantanamo, as a detainee facility, really came into its own in a fully fleshed out fashion after 9/11, which is a false premise in and of itself. Am I right? The answer would be yes, because I'm right about this. So now we're torturing people about an event, theoretically, that they had nothing to do with for the most part, right? They didn't. But they're torturing them so they can do whatever they get whatever they can out of them. But they don't just torture people in Guantanamo. I think there's a lot more going on in Guantanamo. I think that there's training. I think there's probably brainwashing. They're probably using these people as experiments. There have been some people have sent me emails about some of the soldiers, the ISIS soldiers that are captured in Syria, and apparently they're barely human. It's almost like they've been biologically hacked or something. Again, I'm just throwing some stuff out there. It's very fringy, but we got to go to the fringe every now and then. But Trump is basically supporting a woman because she was doing her best for the country by overseeing and administering torture. I just don't, that line of logic, like think of like having that line of logic in 1956 or even 1960. The whole idea and notion of torture, which we know has been taking place throughout time, was not something that the public would easily digest, let alone even contemplate. But now we have the President of the United States defending the methods of somebody whose methods are brutal. Absolutely brutal. It's just a weird world we're living in. And then there's Rudy Giuliani, primping and preening in front of the cameras, doing his little song and dance with Stephanopoulos, just showing us how utterly smug and obscene, the little legalese and language game they play as wink, wink, nod, nod. It's just, we're supposed to think it's funny. We're supposed to think it's cute that Rudy Giuliani is doing everything in his power to keep Donald Trump and have him appear as though he didn't have an affair with Stormy Daniels. At this point, with all the talk about Trump being gay, I'd welcome an affair with Stormy Daniels. Not that there's anything wrong with being gay, but in the United States, presidency of the United States, it's quite easily very blackmailable. Because, well, it's a secret, and most people don't dig their presidents running around with secrets. It doesn't matter what the secret is, but it's a significant secret, especially to his base. So that's going on as well. There's Rudy Giuliani, and I tweeted on Twitter yesterday that he really should be behind bars, and I firmly believe that. The man knows exactly what happened during the 9/11. He knows exactly who did 9/11. He put his city at risk. He put first responders at risk. One of the things that he did after those buildings came down in a cloud of thermite is that he had the first responders go into the rubble as soon as the rubble cooled and go through and pluck out pieces of gold. Apparently, I don't know what the number was, but I think it was somewhere along the lines between $5 to $7 million in gold, something like that they were actually able to get out of the rubble of the buildings 1 and 2. And most of those first responders are either very, very sick or they've died. And so Rudy Giuliani has that on his hands. Somebody should ask him. Somebody should corner him about 9/11 and get to the truth of that. Of course, it won't happen. But this is the world we're living in now. The whole thing is just utterly bizarre. Giuliani says that Trump is going to tear up the Iran agreement. Okay? Where's that going to leave us? Where's that going to take us? Good luck with that. We'll have another international crisis. So this kind of brings me to finally the last topic of today, which was kind of where we started and left off a little bit yesterday. And the story has to do with the fact that, I'll recap it. I was in Costco and I saw a couple. They had a small family, and it looked like they were, again, this is all just, I'm just surface material, and I'm kind of filling things in my head, right? And they looked like they were functioning really well. They were shopping together. One person wasn't ahead of the cart. One person isn't behind the cart. Watch when you go out, you see couples shop. Watch how they interact. It'll give you some ideas about where they are in their relationship, if you have any interest in that sort of thing. So I noticed that the woman was not like considered like culturally attractive, like the things that we would, by and large, pin on somebody that we would think would be attractive. She did not hit those metrics. And I thought about how men have been seduced by this idea of beauty. And that as a result of that seduction, that men have missed incredible opportunities to have healthy, functional relationships that are not built on the moment. The moment being, oh my God, I want that, I want that, I want that. It's like the shiny bright object. And look, attraction is attraction, right? I'm not going to make any excuses for attraction, but clearly we have been inculcated into a cult of beauty, and therefore our expectations are that we want to be with a beautiful person, whether it's on the masculine side or on the feminine side. And Alexandra, who posted over on Facebook after yesterday's show, had a really great comment. And it was one of those comments that's like, pretty revealing because she experienced it. And she said that when she was in Europe, she was on a train and she was talking, or she was in Europe and she'd met a man who was classically very attractive. And he asked her out on a date. And she said that this would never have happened in the United States. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting. And so she wasn't attracted to him, which is interesting in and of itself. But it really brought into focus like the different cultural standards around beauty, attraction, feeling, love, and things like devotion and commitment. It was obviously, she stepped into a different paradigm. And it kind of coincides with some of the, again, brief metrics that I've seen in and around Europe, especially France, where I've seen really attractive women with not so attractive men based on, again, our standards. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting. All the men in France can't be unattractive. So there's definitely a rift in the cultural view of beauty. And it's set up such a high degree of expectations, and the seduction of men with that process, I think, has been an absolute disaster. And you have to go back to Playboy and how Playboy distorted so many values. I know it did in my life. And that's not to say that I didn't or haven't had relationships with women that were, quote unquote, classically unattractive, because I actually have. And some of them were actually really, really good relationships. So But I've also, bought into the beauty thing too, as somebody who grew up in that era. And it just gets to this point of like the short-term fix. I ran across this piece that Henry Macau has on his site, and it's about how men are starting to hate women because women aren't, screwing them. And they're blaming it on women being taken over by third wave feminism. Well, maybe third wave feminism doesn't get a foothold if men aren't seduced so quickly by this cult of beauty. And I'm not talking about Eros. That's completely different. So you have maybe a group of women who are slightly disaffected and certainly not into the competition space of being beautiful and popular. And then, women going their own way, just like now we have this moment of men going their own way, which is, I've had it with women. This whole idea of relationship sucks. I'm just going to go my own way. Whatever happens, happens. I don't need to fulfill myself through some relationship. And a lot of that is, based out of bitterness and rancor, which I totally get. So there's disaffection that's taking place on both sides. But it's been this seduction of the cult of beauty that has been, I think, quite damaging to relationships and to this whole notion of continuity and the idea of family. Like when my father was a really handsome dude, and he had Mars and Scorpio. And if you know anything about astrology, you know about Mars and Scorpio. Okay. And he could have had a pick of any number of women, but he chose my mother. My mother was a plain Jane. And I know why he chose my mother, because my mother was going to give him the best opportunity to have a long-term committed relationship and build a family. Now, I think he used pretty good foresight with that to some degree. I also think there were some other issues that weren't fully fleshed out, but that's another story. So then I began to think about this and what kind of impact it's had on society, besides the fact that we have a lot of broken relationships, a lot of expectations that are unfulfilled, a lot of people that are swarming to be alphas, but not quite getting there for whatever reason. Then we have the retreat from the alpha status, and we got a bunch of betas, and betas trying to reclaim their power in kind of an anti-alpha way. There's a lot of this going on, right? But ultimately, what I think is kind of where we are with this whole dynamic, and a lot of other things that are percolating through our world, is that it's so momentary. It's so for the moment. It's like the beauty fix. I'm going to have the beauty fix. I'm going to go get myself somebody beautiful. I'm going to align myself. It's a cultural standard. I'm going to have a trophy. I'm going to have social status, the beauty fix. And whatever that version is on the feminine side, the power fix. Okay, whatever. But it's really kind of like this kind of momentary level of gratification. And then we see that now, even with, let's say you're not happy with your own sex. Well, you can change that too now in a moment of gratification, right? And what I think is what's happening is that we've lost touch with the idea that there is a future. We've lost touch with the fact that there is a sense of continuity and that we can extend ourselves generationally into a future and build a world. We've lost touch with all of that for a number of reasons. Mostly because we're being bombarded with this sense that the world could end at any moment. And maybe now with this uptick in volcanic activity and Uranus and Taurus, and maybe we're kind of reaching a level of truly critical mass where that might actually be something we have to factor into our experience on the planet, whether it's because the Earth is slowing down, we're really having the dimming, the solar dimming, whatever, however we want to spin this thing, we might be looking at some pretty significant Earth changes from where we sit. But let's even put that aside for now. How are we poised to move into the future? Well, the future that is being set up for us to move into is, it's a brave new world. It's transhumanism, it's VR, it's all these gadgets, all these toys. It's the Jetsons. It's the Jetsons on acid is what it is, right? But that's the version of the future that they're sort of casting out there for us. And meanwhile, the older model, or the organic model, where you have a life, an idea, a partner, a mate, a family, a vision, and building and improving your life and kind of moving up that Saturnian, Capricornian ladder in a positive way, right? Not in a way where you're being a complete and utter psychopath in order to get ahead, sociopath. But, these are some of the things that we've lost touch with because we're in the moment. And we're in the moment because we've been convinced that, number one, it feels good, and number two, that there is no future. This is where I think we're at this point in time. So as I sit here in Fredericksburg, kind of on the fringe, on the rings of Saturn, thinking about things in a different kind of light, these are some of the pieces that are coming to my consciousness. And that maybe we need to really rethink a number of these issues. And I'm just thinking about it right here and now. In order for it to have any kind of social penetration whatsoever, you've got to look at things from a 15, 20, 30-year period, because that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with the effects of the last 30 years in public education and what's come out of that amidst of a number of other things. The decimation of the family, and we can do a whole nother show for the next 3 hours about this. But I think it's important at the very least for us to not stick our heads in the sand. Of course, we're always going to look around. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to track where, the fissures are, on the planet, where the fissures are in our social systems. If we want to, we can root around and we can get all esoteric and we can get way out there. And sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's important to bend that curve, right? But, or to get out in the curve and bend it further. I was trying to think of an appropriate metaphor. But maybe, just maybe, we need to take a step back and think about our lives, our continuity, where we're going. Whether you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, you're going somewhere. I guarantee you, you're going somewhere. So I think this is a really important time. At least for me it is. And I think for other people who are trying to figure out what the hell is going on in the world, maybe one of the more important things to do is to take some time and look at this whole notion of consistency, constancy, and continuity. Constancy is a term that comes up frequently in the I Ching, by the way. Let's check in the chat room. Fohat, before my time, I was told there was not a nice song. If you want to be happy for life, make an ugly girl your wife. Fissures is a good word now. This is Judy, especially with Kilauea going on. That kind of describes how the future feels to me. Yeah, there are fissures, for sure. But I don't think... Look, the Earth and the sun and everything that we're a part of is a byproduct of our consciousness. It's what it is. It's a byproduct of our consciousness. So when we have cracks and fissures in the Earth, what is it? Well, it's connected to us. It's connected to what's going on with, our collective mindset and all the feelings and emotions and the spirit of our time. And yes, of course, there are accelerants that are thrown into the mix, but even those are part and parcel of our consciousness. So if we begin to adjust the sails of our spirit and we begin to adapt a higher degree of consciousness and slowing things down, I believe it can have an impact on the world around us. We need to slow things down, and everything's happening at hyper speed. It's a rush to the future. It's a rush to smart cities. It's a rush to 5G. Rush, 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 rush. We don't have to. So it's important. Take some time out during the day. If you can, unplug. Maybe you can actually leave your cell phone at home. I do that every now and then. I drive off without my cell phone. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I do it on purpose. It's really good. I remember one time I did it. I was sitting around. I'm at a diner. And it's like, guess what? I'm going to read the paper. What a revelation that was. All right, let's get on out of here. I hope we wrapped up enough things today. I didn't leave you hanging. Try to bring them all together and braid them into a fiber optic cable from my mind to yours. And who knows where else it goes. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. I'll be back 24 hours from today, and who knows what the world will bring us.
You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.